In the early hours of December 3rd, 1984, thousands of people lay sleeping in their homes in the central Indian city of Bhopal. Little did they know, a nightmare was taking shape nearby. Over 40 tons of methyl isocyanate gas silently leaked from the Union Carbide Pesticide Plant, immediately killing at least 3,800 people and causing significant morbidity and premature death for thousands more. Over 500,000 people were inadvertently exposed to the toxic gas. This event would later be considered one of the worst industrial accidents in history. The Union Carbide plant employed nearly 700 residents. Many came from lower-class households and resided in the immediate vicinity. The plant itself looked like a metal graveyard, with hundreds of pipes weaving in and around each other. Additionally, the facility was littered with safety hazards. There were 61 violations identified in an inspection conducted just before the incident. Tragically, these threats only set the scene for the disaster that was to come. The chemical at the center of the Bhopal disaster was methyl isocyanate, also known as MIC. This chemical was produced and stored underground in 3 separate tanks, and safety guidelines were in place to ensure that these tanks were properly monitored. The tanks were meant to be no more than half full at all times. The remaining space was pressurized, preventing moisture buildup and allowing for safe and easy drainage as needed. At some point in October 1984, one of the underground tanks lost its ability to maintain pressure, leaving the toxic chemical sitting unprotected from moisture for 2 whole months before tragedy struck. When MIC comes into contact with water, an instant chemical reaction occurs, producing a deadly gas. On December 2nd, 1984, water entered a side pipe trailing into the unpressurized MIC tank. This pipe was also corroding, shedding iron into the water and adding more substances that all contribute to an even more significant reaction. Around 11 p.m. on December 2nd, workers at the Bhopal Union Carbide plant noticed that pressure in one of the tanks had climbed to 10 psi, which was highly unusual. For unexplained reasons, however, this reading did not prompt the workers to do much of anything at the time. They instead went on a tea break. The workers returned to the tank around 12:40 a.m. and were shocked to see the tank's psi had risen even higher to 55, an incredibly dangerous level. The workers were enveloped in panic when control room gauges began to signal that gas was leaking. The gas had breached the containment system and had been released. Preventative action was too little, too late. At 12:50 a.m., an alarm was sounded across the plant to alert workers of the danger. Shortly after, an alarm was sounded throughout Bhopal, but it ended as soon as it began, leaving residents oblivious to the nightmare they were about to face. A fog-like cloud covered Bhopal, leading the community to wake to a toxic cloud of blinding gas. A mass panic ensued. Local authorities made no effort to communicate to the thousands of citizens facing an untimely death. The community was made up of generally uneducated, poor individuals who kept to themselves and minded their own. Not having any idea what was going on, most in the city frantically escaped their homes to search for safety, leaving many children and the elderly left behind in the chaos. The dense, toxic fog made seeing and breathing nearly impossible, and the mass panic led thousands of citizens to become trapped in the gas, choking to death or being trampled by those desperate to flee. The nearby hospital was inundated with patients, but in the initial critical phase of the disaster, doctors did not receive any information from officials as to why so many were so gravely afflicted. Without this knowledge, doctors were simply unable to provide a treatment that would have helped the thousands of patients who were dying as each minute passed. It is estimated that nearly 8,000 died within a few days of the leak, while another 8,000 have since died from diseases stemming from the exposure. On top of this, the lasting effects of the exposure left many more gravely disabled or blinded. Prior to the accident, the list of safety violations was extensive and extremely concerning to investigators. A refrigeration system, for example, had been installed to ensure that the gas was kept at a safe temperature and to mitigate the risk of reactions. However, the system had broken 2 years prior, rendering the feature useless. Additionally, multiple backup defenses were not functioning properly, leaving the growing leak to follow the wind into the surrounding neighborhoods of Bhopal. The impacts of this tragedy are still felt to this day. Groundwater in Bhopal is still contaminated and has continued to cause disabilities in those residing there. Many children of second and third generation descent from those who experienced the disaster have developed a wide array of disabilities, including muscular dystrophy, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, blindness, severe learning impairments, and even attention deficit hyperactive disorder. These conditions have been more common in Bhopal than any other region in India. While these patterns have been observed, many of the medical studies conducted on the long-term effects of the exposure to MIC are unknown. Until 1994, the Indian Council of Medical Research was prohibited from releasing its findings. Even though this date has passed, information released to the public around links to systemic health afflictions in the area have been inconclusive. Some argue that the cause of this gas leak falls directly on negligence and lack of safety precautions taken by Union Carbide. They say that the company knew of the horrendous conditions at the Bhopal plant, especially given that their own investigation found 61 violations prior to the accident. They believe that Union Carbide was aware of the multiple broken failsafes, and yet did not act accordingly to ensure that both their own workers and the citizens living around the plant were protected from such a tragedy. But arguably, the most devastating fact is that many Bhopal victims believe that they were abandoned while they endured the repercussions of the company's failures and will unfortunately continue to live with and pass on the impacts for years to come. My name is Scott, and thank you so much for watching. We're a group of curious and passionate humans, creating documentary-style content for those who share our curiosity, ask questions, and seek to dig deeper in a world where almost everything isn't quite what it seems. We are Mystery Syndicate. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Leave a comment and give this video a like. And to be notified when we post new videos, be sure to hit that notification bell. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. And for exclusive merchandise, visit our website at www.mysterysyndicate.com.